The standard news narrative frames Trump's tariffs on allies as domestic populism or economic incompetence. The strategic reality is different. This is a calculated exercise in coercive economic statecraft. By weaponizing the International Emergency Economic Powers Act against traditional partners like Canada and Mexico, the administration isn't just taxing goods, it is deliberately inflicting pain to force renegotiations on security burdens. This move signals that perceived American decline requires aggressive repositioning through leverage rather than consensus. To understand this shift, we must look at the mechanism of coercion employed starting in February 2025. Unlike previous trade disputes which followed established protocols, this strategy invoked national security justifications regarding illegal immigration and fentanyl flows to impose sweeping tariffs under authority granted by a law passed in 1977. This legal framework allowed the executive branch to treat allies as adversaries within a crisis management context, bypassing standard diplomatic channels entirely. The goal was not merely protectionism for U.S. industry, but creating immediate friction points that would compel partners to the negotiating table regarding alliance terms and burden sharing arrangements. The administration applied specific rates designed to maximize this leverage without immediately collapsing trade relations. A 25% tariff rate was placed on products from Mexico and Canada, with a particular focus on Canadian energy resources like uranium and nickel, which are critical for U.S. defense competitiveness. Simultaneously, a 10% tariff rate was levied against all products originating from China. These rates were not arbitrary numbers, but calculated thresholds intended to disrupt supply chains enough to hurt without causing total economic rupture. The peak effective tariff rate reached 16% in February 2026, marking the highest level since 1936 and representing a massive shift from an average of 2.4% at the start of the term. Quick resource note: I keep a curated set of Amazon search links in the description for books, gear, and tools relevant to this channel's topics. Some are affiliate links, so I may earn a commission at no extra cost to you. Please consider supporting the channel by using those links if you find something useful. However, this strategy relies on high interdependence as both its weapon and its trap. When tariffs are imposed on Mexican vehicles, they effectively tax domestic workers because approximately 30% of the value added in those imports comes from U.S. labor and firms already embedded within Mexico. Similarly, taxing Canadian uranium directly threatens American energy security while attempting to coerce foreign policy changes. The result is a double-edged sword that taxes domestic purchasing power by an estimated $1,250 per household annually, just as it attempts to extract concessions abroad. This self-inflicted cost was viewed not as collateral damage, but as a calculated tax on ourselves to buy leverage in great power competition where traditional alliance structures were no longer sufficient to contain rivals. The analogy used by the Center for Strategic and International Studies frames economic coercion like antibiotics, effective against specific pathogens such as human rights violations or illicit drug flows, yet dangerous when overused on healthy partners. By applying tariffs indiscriminately to close security partners, the United States risks eroding its own credibility as a reliable ally. Just as bacteria develop resistance through antibiotic overuse, allies may begin to decouple from Washington's orbit or form alternative blocs in response to this arbitrary American economic pressure. This erosion of trust has long-term consequences that extend beyond immediate price tags on goods and services. The stakes become even clearer when examining the administrative pivot following a major legal challenge. When the Supreme Court struck down the use of IEEPA for unlimited tariffs without sufficient explanation in early 2026, the administration did not retreat or scale back its demands. Instead, they pivoted immediately to 22 of the Trade Act of 1974, imposing a temporary but sharp 15% across-the-board tariff on all imports. This demonstrated that the policy was not about legal technicalities or specific trade deficits, but maintaining maximum pressure regardless of the statutory vehicle used. The continuity of action proved that the intent was sustained leverage rather than compliance with procedural norms regarding how tariffs are imposed. This shift from using IEEPA for national security justifications to a broader reciprocal tariff regime signals a move toward coercive statecraft over traditional trade dispute resolution. It suggests a fundamental change in how Washington views its relationship with partners who have historically been treated as equals within the alliance framework. If allies lose trust in U.S. reliability due to this perceived overuse of tariffs, future cooperation on containing rivals like China becomes exponentially harder. The strategy assumes that economic pain will force compliance, but it may instead accelerate the very decoupling and fragmentation of alliances that the United States seeks to avoid in a multipolar world order. The question for viewers is not simply who got hurt by Trump's prices or whether domestic industries are being protected from foreign competition. The real strategic endgame involves dismantling parts of the existing alliance network to force a reset on burden sharing, such as NATO spending commitments and border security cooperation. This approach treats economic tools as primary diplomatic instruments rather than secondary supports for political agreements. If this strategy succeeds in extracting concessions without destroying trust, it redefines how great powers negotiate with their partners. But if the antibiotic resistance takes hold among allies, the United States may find itself isolated when genuine security crises arise that require unified action against external threats. The cost of this experiment is paid not just by consumers facing higher prices, but by the long-term health of the international system built on American leadership for decades. The administration's willingness to absorb domestic economic pain suggests a belief that the current alliance structure no longer serves U.S. strategic interests in an era of great power competition. Yet, the risk remains that this coercive approach will yield short-term gains at the expense of long-term influence. As allies recalibrate their strategies and explore alternative partnerships, the United States may find its ability to induce cooperation during genuine crises significantly diminished by actions taken to force renegotiation today. Thanks for watching all the way to the end. I am a one-person team working hard to make each video better than the last. Subscribe if you found value. It is the best way to show support. Drop a comment with your biggest takeaway. See you in the next video.